Okay, Bill. So I came in here to Innovative Audio to talk to you about a new amplifier that D'Agostino is introducing. Is that what this is?
Yes. We're here at Innovative with our North American premiere of the Relentless 800s. So we showed them in Munich. You would have seen them there a handful of months ago, but this is our first time showing them in the U.S. and it's just a wonderful place to do it with one of our best partners in the network.
That's excellent start for a conversation.
Yeah.
Innovative. And so tell me about this amplifier and what makes it different and what makes it unique and why it's great.
Well, the Relentless Series, just to back up just a touch, started a few years ago with our flagship, the Relentless Mono Amplifier, as we called it. And a couple of years thereafter, we added the Relentless Preamp, which we also have on display here for the event, to complete the system. We always knew, or really had suspicions, that we would make a smaller version, that the big guy at 1600 watts into 8 ohms and its physical size would be for quite a few people. We've been very successful with it, but that there was a limitation just, again, because of mostly its physicality. It's a big amplifier. So we knew there'd be a smaller one in the works. And we got started on it. I've been with Dan a long time, and I've asked him for just a smaller version of this or just a slight change to this just to fit where we might need something. And it never happens that way. It never actually just plays out as a smaller version of anything.
You just can't cut it in half and make half the power, right? It doesn't work that way.
No, for sure. But you could just lessen the number of output devices. You could make a smaller power supply, and that'll take the power down, obviously. The chassis becomes smaller then, and now we have the smaller version that sort of I'm mentioning. But again, that's not how Dan's brain works, not how our engineering works. So as the time evolved over those couple of years from the original Relentless to the real development stage of this amplifier, there were things that we wanted to do. There was stuff that we had learned along the way, some of it from the front-end components, the Relentless preamp, and the phono stage even had a part to play in it, that we wanted to incorporate. And it's a phrase I stole from somebody, but it's a great phrase, the idea of trickle forward, not just trickle down. But if we do something and we can put it in any of the places that make sense, we will do that. It doesn't always have to be trickle down. So
can anything from this trickle up now into the next generation of the big amp?
Well, not only will it has already.
Oh.
So the Relentless amplifier, as we finished developing this or started to listen to it, we realized that this was going to actually be better than its bigger brother. And that's just not a good place to be for our customers who have invested a lot of money, and just not a stand we want to have, that our flagship is not the best performing product that we make. So we developed an upgrade package for the big Relentless amplifier. We call it the Epic upgrade.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And so that has allowed customers who invested, again, a tremendous amount of money in our big amp to take a step and be at the latest and greatest, the state of the art that we're currently making.
How does that work? You send a technician to their place, or they pack it up and ship it back? Or?
Well, we've done a lot of upgrades. Our Momentum amps have been upgraded twice, and those we have people send them in to us, and a couple of weeks later, returning them around, and if everything goes well, they're back in their homes in a few weeks. We thought with the Relentless that was a big ask, so instead we go to the people. Yeah. We've done a number in the U.S., done a pair with the Innovative guys. And we show up in the morning, and I think every customer has done this. In the morning, they listen to their Relentless amps. We do our thing, and about 8 hours later, it takes about 10 hours to do, they have the Relentless Epics and can instantly hear the upgrade that they just paid for.
Now, you should get those people on video, get a whole bunch of them on video. You know, the after wow.
Right.
Did you do that? No.
We've done some of that for sure.
That's great advertising.
We've definitely posted some, at least pictures, maybe not every reaction that we've had.
Yeah.
We've done mostly in the States. We've done a few overseas right now, heading out to Vietnam next week to do another pair with our VP of engineering, and I go, and we do a lot of them. We have a show over there, so it kind of ties in, try to tie it in and keep the cost down for everybody. But so from there, those ideas, that's what's become the heart and soul of what's in a Relentless 800. Some of that ended up in the Momentum M400, the MXV version. So again, the idea of that trickle anywhere, trickle forward is definitely in play.
How many output pairs are in here?
We have 84 output devices in the amplifier, all complementary, as you would imagine, all balanced setup. We have 3 transformers in there powering that output stage. So there's a plus transformer for the, obviously for the plus rail, a negative or minus transformer for the negative rail. There's an input transformer to take care of all the rest of the circuitry. Everything is fully regulated. So every voltage that's coming out of that secondary, every setting is regulated. So there's nothing a speaker can throw out the amplifier that's going to upset any of the stages.
This can do well down to an ohm or a half an ohm.
It's stable into an ohm for sure.
Yeah.
We don't double into 1 ohm. So at
Yeah.
800 into 8, it's 1600 into 4, it's 3200 into 2. The speakers that are behind us here get down to 2.6-ish or so. I think their literature or their manuals will say. And that's in that 100 hertz or so range, right in the heart of bass. I think sometimes folks think bass is what they're hearing is 20 hertz or ridiculously low, and it's not there.
No,
it's really much higher in the range.
It's like they think a cymbal is 10K or 12K.
No, it's 2, or it's a much lower range. But neither here nor there. So the idea is to make sure that whatever that speaker asks for, and I use a silly maybe car analogy that works, that if you're driving down an 8 ohm road, and then the road ends up being a 4 ohm road. It goes uphill, it's a little harder to drive. Now you still want to do the same speed, 100 miles an hour up that hill. If you have the engine and the transmission in that car and you step on the gas, you go right up that hill and you stay at that power or that speed. Here it's the same idea. It's that when that speaker drops in impedance, it's asking more for the amp. If it has the engine, which I think of as the power supply, has the transmission, the output stage to get that power to the road, now you go right up that hill. So whatever that speaker asks for from 8 to 4 to 2, it's always on tap with a Relentless.
Now this can plug into a regular outlet. It doesn't have to go into a dryer outlet.
No, we definitely set them up that way for folks, but we design typically around that 110, 120 volt because that's what people have. They have 15 amp lines. We don't want to make it so that you have to bring in an electrician to make things.
If you put it in a dedicated 20 amp line, are you going to get more performance out of it, or?
Well, those numbers that I quoted, the power numbers, you need more than a 15 amp line to get there. So yes, to get the fullest expression, the fullest power capability of the amplifier, you definitely need to do something on the AC side. So 120, 220 amp dedicated lines would take care of almost everybody's needs. But if you start heading to the 220, 240, it's not terribly difficult. If you have two 120 volt breakers unused in your house, you tie those two together, you put the right outlet in, and away you go. If you don't have those in your breaker box, obviously you're going to need to do something with electric. And I'm advocating electricians should do all this work. No one should be playing around their breaker box.
Absolutely.
But conceptually, that's all you need to get that going.
And so, what does a pair of these cost?
These are $195 a pair. And what we have here are the silver versions, obviously, but also available in black, which sells more and more in the States. I love them in silver on store floors. They kind of pop. It has that classic look of the aluminum and the copper.
Yep.
They are big amps. They're in a little over 320 pounds each, but they're less than the 570 pounds that their bigger brothers are. But the copper is such an intrinsic part of that, keeping it relatively small. Again, I know they're big amps, but relatively small. The copper element is the heatsink, the main part of the heatsink. Copper is about 90+% more efficient thermally than aluminum.
Yeah.
So it allows us to use a much smaller piece. There's nothing wrong with aluminum. We use it plenty, and everybody in the industry essentially uses aluminum. I don't know of anybody using copper because it's a pain in the neck to work with to make sure it doesn't oxidize.
It's also more expensive, I imagine.
It is a bit more expensive, but copper as a commodity has stayed pretty stable. It has its fluctuations for sure, but it's been a pretty stable commodity.
And so these bipolar, what kind of transistors?
Absolutely, bipolar. It's the only thing we've ever used from the beginning of the old days all the way through today for an output stage. For current delivery, bipolar output devices are just the best thing to use.
And is this runnable single-ended, or is it pure balanced?
Only balanced inputs.
Only balanced.
Yeah, I mean, if you had to use an adapter, had something like that,
do that, right?
To use an inferior product, yes,
Not the best.
you could do that. But yeah, no, balance is the heart and soul of all the circuits. Yeah. Now we do use FETs in other parts of our lineup. The Relentless preamp on the front end. We're starting to make all of our input stages FET based on the preamp sides, and that has been a kind of a revelatory change to the sound of our preamplifiers that started actually with the phono stage, and then that kind of bled out. Where else can we use this? That trickle foot. Where else would a front end based on FETs become something meaningful?
And are getting transistors becoming I mean, I know that certain transistors go out of production and people have to hoard them. Is that still a problem?
It was, and we were anticipating it might be. So during the pandemic, we bought a lot of output devices. I mean, tens of thousands. We bought a lot of output devices. And capacitors. That was another one that became a challenge. Power supply caps, big caps.
Yeah.
And resistors. 1-ohm resistors became a challenge to find. All of that has pretty much settled down.
Yeah.
Output devices are always a challenge, but there always seems to be development in the output device world, the semiconductor world. So one of the driving forces behind our developments and what makes the newer product take that next step in performance is that there's a step in performance on the underlying component. Right? There's a change to the output device that we can grab a hold of.
When they redesign these output devices, are they thinking about sound quality, or are they thinking? No, they're thinking about other aspects of
military and industrial applications, where almost all of the development on everything is around. The FETs, as an example, bipolars have a complementary. Right? There's the NPN and the PNP devices. Well, in the FET world, that P channel, right? It's called N channel and P channel, a little different terminology, same basic concept. That didn't exist until, I don't know, 8 years ago, something like that. That P channel, N channel was what was needed out in the industrial military world of applications, and then the P channel. And that's when, because all of our devices or circuits are complementary. We're always looking for the plus device to handle just the plus side and the minus device to handle the minus side of the, or I should say negative side of the wave. So that development, if we can grab a hold of it, apply it, see if we can generate some better performance, that drives a lot of what we do and what becomes the backbone of these upgrades. The Relentless was the first one to use the new output device, the big amp, that bled all the way through the line, all the way down to the progression integrated. Our entry-level integrated uses the same output device as the flagship Relentless amplifier. So the DNA is always there. That core of what we do is always part of every one of Dan's designs. But obviously a much more sophisticated kind of application here. How
do you ship these things? In like flight crates or flight cases?
Well, crates, yes, but not flight. These are literally, they work best on a crate, on a pallet strap. The truckers know what to do with that. The airlines know what to do with that. And
they know how to drop ship them. That's what they do.
Hopefully, not as many drops. But we've gone to crates on everything. It just is a safer way to ship.
That's one of the things that a lot of consumers just don't realize and don't pay attention to. When you have a product like this, before you can ship it to anybody, you've got to see what happens in shipping, how well it ships, whether anything happens in shipping. You have to subject it to certain amounts of abuse to see what happens, don't you?
Well, it's an interesting thing. Something we added, I wanted to say 3 years ago, maybe during COVID. Obviously, we treat the product, maybe not obviously, but as they get built, they're treated with kid gloves. They're on carts. Everything is protected. Heat sinks are wrapped. Everything is to make sure there's no scratches and all the things you would expect. But then before we ship them, we've done all the testing. We burn them in. That's the process we call them, just sitting overnight with signal being turned on and off at 100-watt level for amplifiers. So every 12 minutes, it's getting a 100-watt signal, turns off. And so we're heating and cooling and really trying to break it. If we can break it at the factory, that's where we want it to fail, is in our building.
Or in the reviewer's home.
Ideally, completely alienate the reviewer to the experience. But what we added, the only thing we couldn't simulate was the shipping. So we custom made a shaking table, which has a huge horsepower, there's a big engine on it. In fact, we burned out the first one. We had to get a bigger one. And we do put every product that ships out of the building on this shaking table, and it just bounces it around for 15 or so minutes, and then we go retest it. Did we loosen anything?
Just a brief interruption, esteemed viewers. As you may know, I'm Tom Martin, Chief Content Officer of The Absolute Sound. We have a new product. It's on the Substack platform, and we're going to do some interesting things with Substack. First of which is reader questions and answers. Each Monday, readers will submit questions. We'll pick the most interesting ones and we'll answer the questions on Friday. We'll also have early access to articles and special blogs that don't appear anywhere else. We hope you'll join us. It's only a cost of a cup of coffee per month. Just check on the screen or in the show notes below. Thanks. And now back to the show.
There's nothing scarier as a reviewer to open a box and shake it, even if it's a small box, and hear loose screws or nuts.
Exactly. And we do have automated machines for some processes that we do. We have wave solder in our building that is a very efficient, a very reliable application of solder on our boards. And they're humans who build, but they're humans that put everything together. Yeah. So there can be a loose screw. Something can happen.
And this is all made domestically in Arizona.
Yep, in our facility in Cave Creek. We love having people come by. We love to show it off. So
I'll have to do that sometime.
Absolutely, more than
cools off in another 20 years. And
20 weeks is a good time.
And most of the parts that are in here, I mean, the machine, all of the outside of this is all machined close by or locally, or?
Yeah, I mean, some are a little farther away for sure. We do a lot in a local down in Mesa, which is more of the Phoenix proper. We're a little further north of Phoenix, but we try to keep our vendors as close as we can. Some things just simply aren't available.
So you help the local economy as well as everything, plus you employ people. And
yeah, the company has grown considerably. We're in our third facility. It's 3 times the size of the last one. We're already starting to plan on expanding the building. We need to. We never thought we'd fill the room we have. And
Hi-Fi's dead, don't you know that? I keep seeing it online, and you have to believe what you see online.
That's what we keep hearing. But so far, business has been great. And last year was our best year ever, and we're above that this year. So it continues to move forward, which is great. We weren't sure if it was just a COVID bubble, and it would maybe shrink, and as people got back outside and traveling and doing whatever else.
I hear the same story. Wait till COVID's over; it's going to sink like a stone. This is same with vinyl. Vinyl's going to, as soon as COVID's over, people are going to come out of their houses, not going to buy any more records. No, that's not what happened.
It hasn't happened to us. It's been we'd like to think that the hobby or the pursuit of this was just reignited, and it's staying that way, right? We've kind of reinvigorated folks who might have fallen off what we do and got them back in, brought some new folks in who didn't have anywhere to go or thing to do, and now they're into the hobby, because who doesn't love music? Who wouldn't
want
to hear
all the people
that
buy your equipment have like 3 CDs or 3 records that they play over and over again, and then they test. Is that what? Because that's what I hear audiophiles. They don't like music. They're just into testing equipment.
I have, obviously I don't know every customer we have, but I've been to quite a few, if not all, almost all the U.S. Relentless customers, and they are huge music fans.
Of course.
Have tons.
I hate that stereotype. It's out there all the time online. You read it all the time. Or you get, if I did a double blind test with this and my old Radio Shack amplifier, you wouldn't hear any difference, and you could. It just makes me crazy.
Yeah, it's an old sort of warhorse of a complaint that just doesn't exist. And you've been to some of the same customers of ours that for other reasons, but you've been there and you've seen the collections of records and the streaming that they do. CDs, if they have, they're maybe not buying as many CDs as they used to, but their collections are still there. I'm sure there are some that have a limited collection that they listen to.
It's therapeutic for most of them. Most of the people that I've met through this who are very well-to-do and that can afford this kind of thing, I mean, it's therapeutic for them. When they're finished with a hard day of stress, they want to come and just put music on. They don't want to watch television. Most of the time, they don't want to see news. They just want to put music on and go someplace. And a system like this will take you there. So that's what it's about.
No question. I mean, the beauty of this, we were talking about the CD, the artist that you're producing and supporting. If you're listening to modern music or only current music, you can go to a concert and see it, and it's a fabulous experience, right? To be there and hear music created and performed right in front of you. But if you want to listen to Frank Sinatra or Jimi Hendrix or Amy Winehouse, or pick your musician of choice that's no longer with us, there's only one way to do it.
I love when they say,
right?
You could, for that kind of money, you could pay the musician to play in your house. You bring Miles Davis over, I'll pay him, okay?
Exactly, you can pull that off. But that's what you can only do it through this. So to get that feel of 1963, 1983, 1993, there's only one way to do it, through here. And why not have it be as if you were there?
And you can get that. You can do it. You do it. I do it. I put my system on, turn the lights out, and your brain says, wow, I can be there in 3 dimensions and get it. It happens.
That's exactly right. And that's what, that's always been Dan's pursuit. And the Relentless is that sort of ultimate expression of trying to give you that sense of real. We joke at the company, we don't make good sound. We make real sound, right? We're trying to make
it's a bad recording, it's going to sound bad.
Absolutely.
That's what it has to sound like. You can't make everything sound good, because then nothing that's great can sound great.
Right, because there's some coloration that you've added.
Yeah.
And all of our goal here, or the goals for the products, is to stay out of the way, right? Take the signal, extract as much as we possibly can through the circuitry, and then drive speakers like no one else does, right? That's the basic job. And when you buy D'Agostino, you get D'Agostino. There's no integrated circuits, there's no op amps, there's no power packs, there's no modules. Every circuit is discrete. Every element is ours, every part of it. As the company has grown, we've been able to add more engineering assets to the company as well.
How many people are employed at your company?
I think we're at 26 now.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's
That's nice.
It's grown considerably. The engineering crew is up to 5, and
where do the engineers come from?
Some are local. We had a gentleman who moved from Turkey. He's a U.S. citizen, but he's of Turkish descent. Has some Turkish buddies who he's brought into the fold as well. So it's a combination of some local guys. Obviously, Dan is the kind of overarching engineer there, but he's our vision without a doubt. But there's guys doing the core work, and what's nice is that we've added the mechanical side, we've added the digital side. We don't have to outsource any of that. All of it is in-house. So if somebody needs something, occasionally there's a custom request, some feature that we just either thought we should do it differently than what they're looking for. We can easily apply that within an hour, within hours maybe is a
Now,
better
let me
way.
ask you this question. When I ran into Dan at Munich, he asked me about optical cartridges, and he said, should I incorporate an optical cartridge equalizer in my phono preamp? Do you have any news on that front that we can scoop?
We haven't. I mean, we've talked about it for sure. We're huge analog guys. Obviously, digital does dominate a lot of people's listening, but we listen to records all the time, and we hear there's energy out there with the optical cartridge. Should we be pursuing that? I have run into those guys at shows, talked to them, and we haven't made any real connection as to whether we're going to do that.
So I don't have any kind of scoop. Sorry.
Unfortunately, I don't have a scoop for you. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't. Just because there isn't one to give you. If I had one, I'd be a good place.
Would you be able to take that phono preamp and open it up and change a module and change it to something like that, or would it require a whole engineered product?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the audio boards themselves, which are two discrete left and right boards, would be maintained. I don't think anything there needs to be changed. The RIAA curve and that front end of the phono stage is independent and is on its own section. So in theory and concept, yes, it could be done that way, but we haven't even gone that far to say yes for sure. We also introduced recently a new momentum integrated amplifier. We call it the Momentum MXV integrated. Also, we showed that in Munich, and that's starting to ship as well. That one got the HD treatment from the preamp. It got the MXV treatment from the amplifiers. And that one we couldn't go backwards and upgrade. There just wasn't any room to put the bigger transformer and the new circuitry to do that. Whereas we have done that in the Momentum amps. We've done it in the Momentum preamp. I told you about the Relentless amps, obviously. So if we can, we do. We absolutely try to offer that. People spend a lot of money with our products, no matter what level they're at in our lineup. It's a bunch of money. If we can value that investment by giving them an upgrade path to keep them feeling like we understand the money they've spent and value.
Do you have a trade-in policy, or do you have a trade-in policy? And with speakers, some companies have a trade-in policy where they will take back your old speaker, refurbish it, and sell it. Do you have that kind of thing with these big amplifiers, or do you just leave it to the dealer to take care of that?
Well, yeah, we haven't had a traditional trade-up policy or upgrade policy because we've had the actual upgrades to the units.
Yeah.
So instead of having to get rid of the old Momentum mono that you reviewed years and years ago, they could send it to us from 11 years ago, still to this day.
Wow.
And what they end up with is their metal. They get their chassis back.
Yeah.
We gut the whole amplifier, and it's all the new circuitry, transformer, meter, everything changes.
And it's still cost effective to do that rather than just get a new one.
I think it probably works out. I don't, pay that close attention to all the used prices that are out in the world. But we've done a lot of upgrades. We have upgraded a lot of it. So I would think most people look at it and that's the way they go, rather than get rid of it, buy a new one. And I think it has to work out better.
Are your customers loyal to the brand? If they upgrade to a bigger thing, they stay with your brand? Do you keep track of the marketing of that to see how that works? Yeah,
we especially at the Relentless level, there hasn't been a lot of first timers, and there has been a few for sure. But they were in the game at some level. They're not first time to audio at this level, but first time to us. But most of them are guys who had the momentum amps, the M400s specifically, and then maybe upgraded their speakers from something smaller in, say, a Wilson lineup, and then it was time to take a bigger step with us. So,
And what about this? Is what percentage of people follow Dan from his previous company and are like loyal from back then to this? Is there that kind of traffic?
oh, for sure. Oh, yeah. I definitely hear, because I was there for a long time. So
Yeah.
hear about amps that I was part of back in the late 90s, early 2000s, even late 2000s or 20 aughts. Those guys are definitely there. And we had some even last night at the event that were, and still have the old stuff,
Yeah.
and are somewhat blown away that, that amp from 1992 still works. Never had a problem. It's great. I love it. So, and that's how we build. We try to build them to last a lifetime. Obviously, technology moves ahead. There's a reason to take another step.
Oh
but
yeah, absolutely.
we don't build in obsolescence in terms of length of operation or some where everything starts to collapse.
Hopefully
on you.
those people come here and hear this and they know this is in a different level of sonic performance than with those old amps, as good as they were. And
Yeah, specifically one of the gentlemen last night said exactly that. He goes, this is what a step. This is just unbelievable. I'm not sure I can get all the way here, but it is obvious that this is a quantum leap above what I have at home.
that's the other funny thing you hear from people. Well, this stuff hasn't changed in 40 years. It's just the same thing regurgitated with different packaging, and there's been no progress. It's two speakers and an amplifier, and that's all you need. They haven't listened to anything.
It's like saying a car because it has 4 tires and engine. Nothing has changed. Nothing's been better.
Yeah. Well, that's
I
true
don't know.
too to those people.
Yeah, but it's fortunately it's a small business, right? In the grand scheme, and we're a pretty big fish in our pond here, but it's a small business and people know each other. In fact, one of the gentlemen last night was here, is considering these amplifiers and said, do you know Mr. and I won't mention the gentleman's name, of another Relentless customer who's in a different state, midway across the country, and they're just it's a small business. You have to take care of people, and if it doesn't do the next step, if it isn't better,
Have you ever thought of having a customer convention?
We have,
Like with car companies, invite people.
We have.
Invite them all into the factory and do a tour and have dinner and overnight and have them build their own amplifier and no, not that.
100%. Actually, yes.
Have you done it yet, or you're thinking about it?
No, we've thought about it. We've started a training program for the dealers, and during their stay with us, or the part of it is that they do solder boards. Chris from Innovative was there, and he was on the bench soldering for us.
And you make sure the Ampy builds comes to the store that he works in.
Oh yeah, and we even gave him an RMA just because we knew his work wasn't up to. No, it was a great little thing. Guys got to see, and we've had some journalists. We're going to start bringing more journalists out for sure to see what we do. And one group came out, and it was from Germany, and we asked them what was. I was curious because I don't get invited to other companies, especially electronics
You're an
companies.
industrial spy. Why would they invite you?
They would never invite me. But what did you notice here that you don't see elsewhere? And it caught me off guard. They said, "You guys build your own boards. You build everything. Like you just don't get them in and then just put them in boxes," which was kind of foreign. Really, and that's a valid way to build things.
You stuff all your own boards.
Oh yeah. Now some of the surface mount we don't, but all the through hole, which is all basically the audio carrying circuits, the logic that controls volume and inputs and things like that on a preamp. That we don't surface mount.
And you have a military a person doing that. You have a military contractor who does that kind of stuff, or
they do military work for sure. They're not specifically a military contractor, but
there's a lot. Every place I go, I see companies that do that kind of stuff. There's two divisions. There's one division that does this, and then they also have a division, or that does other stuff for the military, like where you can't see that. Don't look at that. Don't film that, or you can film it, but don't put it in the video. Make sure we see the video before you run it. That kind of thing.
Yeah. And Phoenix is great for that. It's a high-tech neighborhood, so in the Valley, there's a lot of places that do that type of support work for bigger entities for sure.
Yeah.
So
well, great. So this has been available for how long? A couple of days?
They just landed here Tuesday.
Wow.
This is the first pair that's in the States. They are in full.
Are they spoken for
throttle.
yet? No. What are you waiting for?
You can be the first if you want to, but it's now we're in full production. They finally really started flowing both the black and the silver, so they'll start to hit all the folks that are out there.
How long did it take to conceive of this product and finally see it here?
It was probably 13 months.
Oh.
It took quite a while. There's one part of today's world that we didn't have, and there's probably more than one, but circuit simulation is a standard part of what we do and have for a while. So you don't have to make as many prototype boards, try things.
I've seen that at other places. Isn't that an amazing thing that you can do all that prep work in the virtual world and know what's going to happen when you actually make it?
Right.
It's great.
The only part that we can't fully simulate is the metal. Is how everything's going to fit together.
Yeah.
If we position something not quite right and there's noise being generated that we didn't see, and hard to simulate noise in the simulators. You can, but it's not always as predictable.
You mean electrical noise, not physical noise.
Yeah, electrical RF, whatever it might be. So the metal took a little bit longer than we expected to get it to all fit and line up right.
The environment is so full of pollution now with Wi-Fi and all these other things that are going through people's homes. You have to take that into account when you design these products and test them in rooms that are like polluted with that kind of stuff to see what happens.
We do some of that for sure, but the FCC is pretty tight and strict on things emanating from devices. So we don't have that too much trouble. It's usually the AC that we're most worried about. So we have a lot of filtration on the front end of the EM and RF interference protection on the amplifiers on the power supply side. So that's the biggest one. We don't notice too much on the Wi-Fi side.
I know some places have a room with a Faraday cage so they know what it sounds like when it's totally quiet, and then they bring it into a room where everything.
Interesting. That we don't have a Faraday cage. That's for sure. Yeah, but that's a cool thing. I have to think about that one. So, but they're sounding pretty good so far. They're even without a Faraday cage, it's doing all right.
Well, this is a pretty good room, so.
Yeah.
So we should listen to some music.
We should. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
I see Dan is channeling into my brain.
Oh, is he?
Hey, it's Dan D'Agostino here. I got a new amp coming out. It's going to have a clock the size of Big Ben in the front, okay? And I'll see it in Munich next year. You'll see it. It's going to be great.